So, in this moment, I would like to share the vision for this year. I know I'm new in the parish, and one of the things that I always say when I start working in a new ministry is it's really hard to create a vision without knowing the community fully. So I'm doing this after 8 months of being here, and I can see some gifts and skills and possibilities. And I got to know you better. I'm not fully inserted in the community around us, but I have a sense of what we have around us. So today I want to introduce you my vision for this year, and I'm going to use a symbol, a biblical symbol, to be our guide through the year, and I hope that helps us. And the biblical symbol is the one you have in the cover page of your booklets, of your reports, which is based on the gospel we heard this morning, John 15, chapter 15, verses 1 to 15. And the true vine, where Jesus says, I am the true vine and you are the branches. So that's going to be the symbolism we're going to be using this year. One of the things that I find very important, that symbol, is a tree doesn't grow overnight. And that's one of the things I learned in my ministry. We are very excited about throwing the seeds on the ground and caring for the seeds and seeing the first sprouts coming up. And quite often, Episcopal Church wants to accelerate the process of growth and beauty, and it doesn't work like that. We need to take the time, and we believe that the Holy Spirit is working in us. Also, it's very biblical that the dream of God starts around a tree and ends around another tree. So do you remember in the book of Genesis, when God creates everything? God puts in the center of the garden a tree, and in the Genesis, you're going to notice there are two trees. There's the tree of life, and there is the tree of the knowledge between good and evil. But the tree of life is the one that really matters to us today, because we are talking about abundance. And at the end of the biblical story, the Holy City of God, the Holy Jerusalem, has again a tree in the center. And under the tree, a flowing river of water of life. And I don't know if you have noticed, but every Sunday during Epiphany, we've been saying that story, that the leaves of the tree are for the healing of the nations. You are the leaves of the tree of God. You are for the healing of the nations. So with that spirit, in the image of the tree, I want to invite you to engage in this year on the theme, I'm the true vine and you are the branches. For that, I put together 7 items for us to talk about or meditate upon. The first one is the mission statement of the Anglican Church. We don't need to create a mission statement. There is one already. And we're going to look which one it is. Then we have a parish mission statement, which is very important for our identity. And we're going to see how does that connect with the Anglican Church mission statement. Then I'm going to speak about the vision for the next 12 months, the goals, the objectives, the tactics, and consider at the end of the 12 months the importance of the evaluation of what we experienced and what needs to be changed and adapted for the next year. So, the mission statement. In the Anglican Communion a few years ago, leaders, bishops and lay leaders and clergy came together to develop what is called the 5 marks of mission. We believe that the mission of the church is also the mission of Christ. And we identified 5 marks of mission. So do you remember the story when Jesus walked into the synagogue, opened the scroll of the prophet Isaiah, and reads what God calls him to be or to do? So the 5 marks of mission are based on that story of what we call the mission day. God's mission is also our mission. So the first one, I'm going to ask Nick to pass to the next slide. So the first one is to proclaim the good news of the kingdom, which in some Episcopal church we use the word tell, to tell about the good news. The second one is to teach, baptize, and nurture new believers, which the key word is teach. The third one is to respond to human need by loving service, that we call tend. To seek the fourth is to seek to transform unjust structures of society, to challenge violence of every kind, to pursue peace and reconciliation. So the key word there is transform. And finally, the fifth is to strive to safeguard the integrity of creation and sustain and renew the life of the earth, which is treasure, which means everything that God gave us. How do we care about the treasures that God gave us? You know, like the story of the talents. And there we go. We have 5 key words: tell, teach, tend, transform, and treasure. And everything that St. James have been doing and everything that we will be doing will be in one of those 5 categories. You're going to see the ministry that you do connected to one of those. So what I'm saying before we move on is some of the ministries we have already will continue. So, for example, we have weekly Bible studies. That's going to continue. It's not going to change. Going to have weekly center in prayer for meditation and coming together in fellowship. That stays. Going to have acolytes training. We have altar guild meetings. So all the ministries we have already, they're going to stay for this year. And we'll only evaluate all that at the end of the 12 months. And so next year we can improve what is possible. Now let's take a look at the mission of the parish. Do you remember the mission of the parish? Every Sunday at the end of the service, Nick or the person who is at the booth will place this slide that shows Arizona desert, and then there is a sentence, and the sentence is our mission. It's a welcoming, loving, and serving all God's children. That's who St. James is. The parish mission is in alignment with the Anglican Communion understanding of the mission day. At St. James, people find an open, accepting, and loving family of faith. Newcomers immediately notice a casual atmosphere where strangers become family. Our congregation embodies a welcoming, caring, and serving nature for anyone seeking a closer relationship with God. So now that we have clear what is God calling us, what is our mission as Anglicans or Episcopalians, and then as members of St. James, let's take a look at the vision for this year. It's not a secret that Father Sam have been talking to you again and again about spirituality. And it may be not a secret for some of you, it may be new news for some of you, that I would like to see St. James to become a place for spirituality for all, a center for spirituality for all. And that will include the idea of being a place for training, for pilgrimage, for experience different types of spirituality. And I brought a quote of one of most well-known mystics of the contemporary days, which is Pierre Teilhard de Chardin. Forgive my French. He says, we are not human beings having a spiritual experience. No, we are not. We are spiritual beings having a human experience. That's what I want people who enter the door of this church to experience, to be reminded of, that we are image and likeness of God. And then, as a community of faith, we will discover ourselves in the presence of God. So, keep in mind, by nature, we are seekers of spirituality. Just think about your life in these years. Having to be in every week trying to find God in different ways, maybe in Eucharist, maybe in the daily life, maybe in the work we do at home, we're constantly seeking spirituality. We do know that prayer and worship and the sacraments are just few of those elements that help us to engage in a deeper relationship with the transcendent. We acknowledge that in our neighborhood, the diversity of ages and cultures creates an opportunity to offer ministries that may bind us together. And I have seen through different events we had in the parish, people from different ages coming to me and saying, I've been looking for a place a house of prayer. The last one was at Candlemas, at St. Augustine's. We had young people coming and saying, this was so nice. When can we have something like this again? So for each one of us, spirituality means something. And because they are different, they are not wrong. They are just different ways of seeing spirituality. And my hope is through this year to find different spiritualities to be offered to different people, different ages, different cultures, and in different moments of the life of the community. So, what are the goals? In my opinion, the first is this community. So the first goal is to respond to the diversity of spiritual needs of our parishioners. So we can't grow a tree if we don't have strong roots. If the roots are superficial and if we congregation are not nurtured enough, we will not be taller in our tree. On the other hand, there is the second goal. The second goal is to address the unmet spiritual needs of our local community. It's also known, and at least I have heard in the process of applying for the job here, that St. James is really good in caring for one another. But sometimes we don't have the same strength caring or looking out for who is out around us. And we do have a good secret. We are a very good, welcoming community. But how people will discover that if they don't walk into our doors? How are they going to know if they don't walk here and get to know you? So we need to find ways to put us, in communication and dialogue with the local community. So these two goals, to nurture our congregation and to address the unmet spiritual needs of our local community. And our objectives, I'm sorry it looks tiny there, but you're going to get all this online later in this week. So you can take notes, but you're going to get this online. I defined 4 objectives for this year, and I pray that you help me to accomplish all the 4. So the tree is not going to grow if it's not done in community. The first one, which I consider one of the most important, is to become a hub for spirituality that attracts larger number of people into the church space to meet their spiritual needs. It may be through events, it may be through special programs, and maybe through festivals. Not only on Sundays, but at least 6 days a week. We aim to double the number of newcomers or church members. through the week. So let's say, what I have seen lately during this period of COVID, I have seen about 30 people coming to the parish during the week. We have the prayer group, we have the Bible study, we have members of the vestry coming through the church office with Diana. We have other ministries happening. So what if the church is alive not for a few days of the week, but most days of the week? And more people coming through means more people getting to know us. In one of the Episcopal churches I've been, they had a yoga program during the week, and they started with 35 people, and currently they have 400 people. So we need to find ways to offer this space to be a place that meets people's spiritual needs, and what that could be. The second one is to increase the membership by at least 5% on this year. I did this based on what you told the National Church we have. So based on the National Church website, which reports our current membership as approximately 240 members. So in the past years, St. James have been telling the National Church, we have about 240 members in the parish. 5% means 12 people at February next year. I think it's possible. It's all about being invitational, but we will see. Later, the next slide, we're gonna take a look on the numbers, but anyway. The third one is increase of revenue as a reflection of the increase of newcomers and church events to cover the projected deficit of $70,000. So we are not attracting people because we need the money. When we attract people, because we are a healthy community, people will find a place where they can call family. Like the motto, where strangers become family in St. James. When somebody is happy and healthy in a church community, they will invest in that community. So it's not that we're bringing people to pledge, but we'll bring people to respond to their spiritual needs, and as a consequence, people will invest in this community. But also, you'll be also creative, finding other ways. I've been in dialogue with Canon Anita Brandon, and we were talking that in nowadays, it's really harder to maintain everything just based on pledges. So we need to find creative ways of moving forward. And we'll be in dialogue about that. And finally, the fourth one is develop collaborative ministry with sister Episcopal churches, beginning here in Tempe area and potentially expanding outward in subsequent years. So you start seeing already, we have 3 Episcopal churches in Tempe. We did some events with the Church of St. Augustine. We've been involved with Epiphany and the Valley Interfaith Project because we really care about what's happening in our schools and what's happening in our community. We want to strengthen that because only together we can be stronger. So just now the next slide, I want to make sure you see the next slide. This is in the National Church website. It's about St. James. If you can see the big block that's blue color, that's the number of membership. And it has been presented almost the same, between 200 and 240 from the year 2011 until the year 2020. The very thin line that goes up and down, that came down and then went up and then is down again, that line represents the plate and pledge. So right now, during the pandemic, we are exactly in the same point that in 2014 we were. And the year that we had people, well, good numbers on plate and pledge was the year of 2016. And the attendance on Sunday is the small block, the black small block, and that's around 75 people. You can find this information on the National Church website. It gives a sense of what we experienced in the past years. These are based on the reports that you, the parish, gave to the National Church. And it will help us with evaluation in next year. So next slide is what I'm calling the tactics. So have you noticed the 5 marks of mission is defined by 5 words: tell, teach, tend, treasure, and transform. So I want to present you some ideas as an initial starting point. Like I said, of the things we have already, we are not touching yet. But there are some new ideas that I'm bringing to the community, and I need your help to implement. Your input is appreciated, as well as your talents, your time, and your treasure to make this program successful. The collaborative work begins now with the commitment and full participation in the life of our parish. So I'm going to ask Nick to pass one, and the next one, the tactics. These are based in things I observed in the parish. So the first one is the word tell. For the word tell, I want to focus in a program for spirituality of aging. So in September last year, I brought to the parish Reverend Susan Walker, and she spoke about the importance of the spirituality of aging. And also our diocese offers some programs. So through this year, we're going to combine the two experiences, and we will nurture this church community. It's focused for a particular aging group, but everyone is invited to be involved in the program. The second one is teach. So the program for teach is naturally coming from some of members of this community and have been consulted from members of St. Augustine's. So we would like to create a Thursday community. Right now we have Thursday worship. So Thursday worship is coming together in using the resources from Thursday. A Thursday community is a group of lay and ordained people who have the charisma of Thursday as their main focus. So there are people from St. Augustine's who want to do that with us, and there are people in our community who would like to do that with them. So God is already working naturally on us. The second option I'm just bringing because I grew up in a Franciscan spirituality. So our church has 3 Franciscan orders. We have the first order of St. Francis, the second order of St. Francis, and the third order of St. Francis. If among us there are anybody who is a follower of St. Francis of Assisi or Clare of Assisi, we just needed 3 people to start a Franciscan fellowship. And if you have the desire, talk to me. The third, tend. We have unfortunately not having a regular youth gatherings, but I want to propose through 12 years to a monthly youth event. That doesn't mean it's going to be Sunday school or Bible vacation. It's going to be different things. It may be just getting together to celebrate something that is important for the youth. We will go and find millennials in the university area, and identify what's important for them and try to find things that they can relate and they will feel attracted to come here. And we will need volunteers to work with us, with Eileen and with I, on this program. So everyone is invited to help and collaborate. Transform. And this one I find exciting, like the other ones as well. I hope. In my former church, we used to have a dialogue with the clinic and the neighborhood. And between the church and the clinic, we had a group that served the LGBTQIA plus team who just came out or who are going through discernment. And sometimes the church was the safe space where they would meet, sometimes was at the clinic. 10P area and Chandler area doesn't have a place like that. And maybe a chance, an opportunity for St. James to become that. How are we going to do? Well, the clinic in Washington, D.C. is open to help us to create those steps. They also said that there are federal funds if we go towards of creating that program. So that's also helpful to know that we may have financial resources to keep that on. And I'm sure we all have friends or connections that can help us to build a safe place for young people here in this parish. And finally, the last one is treasurer. In the time I was working in my academic studies in California, I was part of a group called Holy Hikes. Does anybody here knows what Holy Hikes program is? No? So it was created in the Diocese of California, and instead of the congregation meeting on Sunday morning at the church, they go on a hike. And on the hike, they carry their Bibles, they carry their bread and wine to be consecrated, and during the hike, they have stations where they stop for Bible readings, and then stop for meditation, and stop for prayer, until they get to the point where the Eucharist is going to happen. It's not for everyone, but it builds community, and for those unchurched people, or those young people who have a hard time with the institution, Holy Hikes combines the experience of being outdoors, the experience of being in community, and the experience of being in prayer. So it's a different way of encountering God in one another and also in nature. So it's an opportunity to create a new congregation. Those are 5 programs I would like to implement this year. If you feel inclined to participate in one of those, come and talk to me. I will be addressing those with the vestry. And my hope for the coming year is to, when we get in February next year, we look back and say, this happened, and look how many people are with us now that didn't know us before. And the last slide for today is to make sure at the end of this process, we stop, look back, and do evaluation. We see the progress, we see what works and what didn't work, and then we improve for the coming year.